Now it's time for the stories.
Think about it. What does it mean to be in love with someone? Like, really in love. Let's face it, love can be sad. And Romeo and Juliet is the saddest love story of all. A real tearjerker. It's so tragic that I could just start crying thinking about it. I'm not crying. Don't look at me. Watch Romeo and Juliet. I've got to pull myself together.
Romeo and Juliet.
In Italy, in the town of Verona, live two families that do not get along. They are the Capulets and the Montagues.
Loser.
Tonight, there's a jumping party at Lord Capulet's house. But these two masked men were not invited. That's Romeo, the son of Lord Montague, and his best friend, Mercutio. Romeo has just spotted Capulet's daughter, Juliet.
I never saw such beauty till this night.
But just as he starts to make his move, Tybalt, Juliet's cousin, steps in.
Stop right there, Montague.
He knows Romeo is a hated Montague who doesn't belong here. And love at first sight almost becomes love at first fight.
Romeo, let's get out of here.
Juliet finds out that Romeo is the son of Lord Montague.
Huh?
And Romeo finds out that he's just fallen in love with the daughter of his father's enemy.
Go!
But he's determined to see Juliet again, even if she is a Capulet.
She has to be alone sometime.
The next night, Romeo sneaks a peek at Juliet's window and discovers that Juliet loves him too.
Oh, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo?
Yes!
Romeo doesn't need to hear any more. Faster than you can say I do, they are husband and wife. The priest, Friar Lawrence, hopes the marriage will bring the feuding families together. Romeo goes back to town to tell his pal Mercutio the good news. They run into Tybalt, who's still angry.
Romeo, what were you doing at Capulet's party the other night?
But Romeo ignores him.
I asked you a question.
Mercutio steps in.
I'll answer your question, Tybalt.
Mercutio draws his sword and there's a fight. Tybalt stabs Mercutio dead. Romeo loses it.
Tybalt, you villain!
And kills Tybalt. The happy new groom is now a murderer on the run. Things get worse. Juliet's father has arranged for her to marry a creepy rich guy named Paris.
He's no Romeo.
She can't tell her parents she's already married to the guy who killed her cousin. So she goes to Friar Lawrence for help.
Take a drink of this, Juliet. It will put you into a deep sleep, so deep that your parents will think you're dead. I will tell Romeo and he will go to your tomb, and when you wake, he will be by your side.
Juliet takes the potion, but Romeo never gets the message from Friar Lawrence. All he hears is that Juliet is dead. Oh!
I will join Juliet in death.
He gets some poison and rushes to her tomb.
Here's to you, my love. With this last kiss, I die.
Where am I?
Juliet wakes up horrified to see her dead husband.
Oh no! Romeo dead? None left for me?
Come, this way.
I need to be quick. Oh, happy death. Let me die.
The tragedy teaches the two families the terrible price of hatred. Like many lessons, it is learned too late. So ends a tale full of woe, that of Juliet and her Romeo.
Next up, a story of jealousy, greed, murder, and backstabbing. No, it's not an episode of Survivor. It's Shakespeare's play, Julius Caesar. It's based on the real Julius Caesar, the great Roman leader who would have been emperor back in 44 BC if his friends hadn't stopped him. Watch this story of Julius Caesar and consider, with friends like these, who needs enemies? How do you know who you can trust?
Julius Caesar.
The people of Rome have gathered to honor Julius Caesar, the commander of Rome's armies. Caesar's conquests have made Rome the most powerful empire on earth. Caesar is so popular that his friend Mark Antony has offered him the crown on behalf of the people. But not everyone loves Caesar. Cassius is jealous of Caesar and is plotting to kill him. Cassius wants Brutus, a noble and well-respected senator, to join his murder plot. Brutus admires Caesar, but he's afraid Caesar will have too much power if he becomes king. As Caesar heads home from the celebration with his wife Calpurnia, a blind man in the crowd warns him.
Beware the Ides of March.
The Ides is the 15th, which is the next day. That night brings a raging storm. Cassius takes it as a sign that Caesar must be stopped. Brutus worries all night about whether to join the murder plot, and Calpurnia has horrible dreams about the blind man's warning. In the morning, she begs Caesar not to go to the Senate that day.
I had a terrible dream.
But the plotters convince Caesar to go.
No, don't go!
When he arrives at the Senate, his enemies surround him. Then all at once, they take turns stabbing him. Caesar is stunned to see the decent Brutus among his murderers.
You too, Brutus!
Angry mobs gather at Caesar's Caesar's funeral, but Brutus convinces them the murder saved Rome from Caesar's power and ambition.
I loved Caesar, but I love Rome more.
Kill Brutus! Kill Cassius!
Then Caesar's friend Mark Antony speaks.
Friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend me your ears. I have come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. If Brutus says that Caesar was ambitious, then that is right, for Brutus is an honorable man.
Then he reads Caesar's will, in which he left all his riches to the people. And he reveals that Caesar refused the crown when it was offered to him. He holds up Caesar's bloody robe, and the crowd turns on the murderers. Mark Antony gathers his forces to fight Brutus and Cassius and their armies. The night before the battle, Cassius and Brutus realize they'll be defeated and vow not to be taken alive. So each chooses to die by his own sword. The same swords that killed Julius Caesar.
Caesar, you are revenged.
Even in death, Julius Caesar has won the battle over his enemies.
Hi, I'm Nikki, and I'm going to rock your world with the next 4 videos. Our first story is about a subject that's on everybody's minds these days, the environment. But it wasn't always on people's minds until a woman named Rachel Carson wrote a book that made people take a closer look at what we put into the air and how it affects wildlife and people. Carson tried to imagine a world with no birds singing, so she called her book Silent Spring. Check it out and think about how her message is relevant to us today.
Breath of fresh air.
People used to think it was okay to spray all kinds of poisonous chemicals into the environment. But decades ago, one woman wrote a book that convinced the world to clean up its act. A biologist named Rachel Carson challenged the chemical industry and the government in her book, Silent Spring. It was written in the 1950s as America was waging a new kind of war, a war on bugs.
The real threat, then, to the survival of man is not chemical, but biological, in the shape of hordes of insects.
New chemical bug killers, pesticides, like DDT, were giving America the power to wipe out insects that destroy crops and spread disease. In 1959, 80 million pounds of DDT were sprayed on the United States. The government actually put on these demonstrations to prove the toxic chemical was safe. But evidence was piling up that they were wrong. Dead wrong. Birds and other wildlife were dying from DDT poisoning, and Rachel Carson knew she had to act.
The public was being asked to accept these chemicals and did not have the whole picture. So I set about to remedy the balance there.
She spent 4 years researching and writing her book, which explained that when we poison nature, we poison ourselves. Of course, not everyone agreed, especially the companies that sold the chemicals.
The major claims in Miss Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, are gross distortions of the actual facts.
But Rachel Carson had the facts right, and many powerful people were persuaded by her book, including President John F. Kennedy. It wasn't long before the public was, too. Within only 2 weeks, Silent Spring became a bestseller, changing the minds of millions. Soon the government began to limit the use of DDT, and 10 years later, it was banned completely. Rachel Carson's writing sparked a new awareness of how we treat the environment, and her activism inspired a generation of environmentalists determined to keep this from turning into this. It took just one woman and a few hundred pages to help clear the air.
When a scandal hits the newspapers, there's nowhere to hide. And when that scandal involves the White House and the government, it can rock the whole country. That's what happened back in the 1970s, when two young reporters named Woodward and Bernstein broke the biggest scandal in U.S. history. How does the media affect how you see your government and your world? Here's a little lesson on the power of the press.
Bringing down the house.
It was the middle of the night on June 17, 1972, when police discovered a break-in at the Watergate building complex in Washington, D.C. 5 burglars were arrested for breaking into the offices of the Democratic Party. No one paid much attention to the crime, except for Carl Bernstein and Bob Woodward, 2 young reporters from the Washington Post newspaper. Woodward was new to the Post, and the experienced Bernstein wasn't sure he liked him, but they teamed up because they both suspected there was more to this story. When they dug deeper, a secret source in the government, known only as Deep Throat, told them to find out who paid the burglars. Promising to keep their sources secret, the reporters traced the money all the way to the White House, and they found proof that the Republicans in charge of President Nixon's re-election campaign had paid the burglars to spy on the Democrats. The Post printed it, TV News reported it, and President Nixon denied it.
I have never heard or seen such outrageous, vicious, distorted reporting in 27 years of public life.
President Nixon won the next election, but Woodward and Bernstein kept the heat on. They wrote a series of articles that rocked the country, exposing a web of lies and conspiracy at the highest levels of government.
Committee will come to order.
Within months, the U.S. Senate set up a committee to investigate the Watergate break-ins. 19 people who worked for President Nixon were found guilty of breaking the law. To avoid being impeached and thrown out of office himself, on August 9, 1974, Richard Nixon became the first U.S. president to quit his job.
I shall resign the presidency effective at noon tomorrow.
Before Watergate, the press was pretty easy on presidents. But Woodward and Bernstein changed all that, inspiring journalists to work at keeping government honest. And by the way, if you really want to know who Deep Throat is, forget it. 30 years later, Woodward and Bernstein still hadn't revealed their source.
It's the one great secret in the whole world.
Ask anyone who's fought in a war, and they'll tell you it's an experience they'll never forget. That's why war memorials are important. They help us remember the people who made great sacrifices for their country. And that's why it's so amazing that a young woman with no experience of war stirred the whole country with her design of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. Maya Lin went on to build many other projects, but no one will forget how she first made her mark on the world. Watch and think about this. Why is it important to honor our heroes?
A place to remember.
From 1965 to 1973, the United States fought a war in the small Asian country of Vietnam. Almost 60,000 American soldiers died there. At home, the Vietnam War was so unpopular that when it was over, many Americans just wanted to forget about it. But the soldiers returning from Vietnam couldn't forget, and they didn't want the country to forget either. So in 1981, a group of veterans held a nationwide competition to design a Vietnam memorial in Washington, D.C. More than 1,400 designs poured in from across the country. They came from artists and architects, professionals and amateurs, and they ranged from traditional to, well, imaginative. But the panel of judges all agreed that this simple design was the winner. They were shocked to learn that it was the work of a college student, 21-year-old Maya Lin. Maya was a gifted architecture student, but she never dreamed she would win the competition.
It still hasn't sunk in yet.
The other monuments in Washington were big and bold, but Maya's design was just a black slab of granite, a low wall that would show the names of everyone killed in Vietnam. The judges thought it was quiet and dignified, an appropriate symbol of a painful war. But some people thought it wasn't big or impressive enough, and they wanted it changed.
I don't see how a black ditch underground, I don't see how that honors anyone.
She was hurt by the reactions, but Maya Lin stood by her design.
It is not a memorial to politics or war or controversy, but to all those men and women who served.
The memorial's artistic committee agreed, and the wall was built just as Maya had designed it. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial opened in 1982, and the public embraced it. Maya's design was powerful. The families of dead and missing soldiers could see and touch the names of their loved ones, and Vietnam vets had a solemn place to honor their service in the war. It is the most popular public memorial in the nation's capital, the work of a young student whose inspired vision still touches the whole country.
You can read about Jackie Robinson in history books, and older folks can remember watching him play baseball back in the 1950s. People everywhere know him as the first African American to play in the major leagues. But one person knows him in a different way. The girl who called him Dad. How does Sharon Robinson remember her famous father? What makes someone a hero in the eyes of their family and history? Let's see.
Daughter of a legend.
Another rising personality in the world of sports. Jackie Robinson of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Jackie Robinson was the first African American to play in Major League Baseball, breaking the sport's color line and paving the way for thousands of other black athletes. Millions of people called him a hero, but I just called him Dad. That's me, Sharon Robinson, with my father, Jackie, in 1951. My father's journey to the big leagues began a few years before that, around 1945, a time when the United States was still segregated. In some places, black people couldn't sit with whites on buses or even drink from the same water fountains. And black baseball players weren't allowed to play in the major leagues. At that time, Jackie Robinson was playing in the Negro Leagues, the only professional teams where blacks could play baseball. He didn't know that this man had bigger things in store for him. Branch Rickey was the general manager of the famous Brooklyn Dodgers. He wanted to bring blacks into the major leagues, and he was searching for the right player to lead the way. He heard about Jackie Robinson's reputation as a star college athlete who excelled in 6 different sports.
Robinson has it, running wide.
But he needed to know if my dad was a strong person, strong enough to take the prejudice he would face. But after Branch Rickey met Jackie, he knew he had the right man. The news of a black major leaguer rocked the country. Fans, players, and team owners protested. Even some of Jackie's teammates said they wouldn't play with him. But in 1947, Jackie played his first major league game with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He got insults and even death threats along the way, but he made it through the whole season. Well, he didn't just make it. He was voted Rookie of the Year. Jackie could hit, he could field, he could play almost any position. But most impressive was his speed and the way he could steal bases.
And here comes Robinson, trying to steal home. He's safe.
Over 10 years, he led the Brooklyn Dodgers to 6 World Series and became one of baseball's most respected players. Only 5 years after he retired, he was voted into the Hall of Fame. But most important, because of his dignity and courage, he opened the door for other black players to join the league and be accepted by America. He changed the face of baseball forever and continued to struggle for racial equality the rest of his life.
We're quite proud of the accomplishments, the achievements that black people made. We want to make the kind of contribution that will bring pride and dignity to us.
When my dad died in 1972, thousands of people turned out to honor him. Since then, I've written 2 books about him, and I travel around the country talking about the special person he was. Oh, I have another job, too. I'm a vice president for Major League Baseball. And I couldn't have done that if Jackie Robinson, my dad, hadn't paved the way.
A trailblazer in the world of sports. Jackie Robinson.